What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a look at a interesting little title called Conquest Dark. This is a game that is seeking to marry a whole bunch of different ideas into a horde mulching survival game with hordes running at you all over the place, loads of things to upgrade. And so anyways, we're going to take a look at the game today for about 30 minutes. We're going to see if it's something you wanted to add to your wish list, or if it's one of those games that you would rather not play for yourself. Maybe you've gotten tired of the genre. But I do think that much like Halls of Torment, this game has done a pretty good job at taking a tired genre and turning it into something actually entertaining, and I'm interested in seeing what the developer is going to do with it as time goes along. So the link to the game's demo is down below. You can check that on out. It's a pretty generous demo. It'll probably take you around 4 hours to get through all of the content in the demo, so if you're looking for something to kill some time this week, not a bad idea, especially if you're predisposed to action RPGs like Diablo. And then, of course, you can find links to my Discord and my Twitch stream, just in case you wanted to hang out live. But without further ado, let's go ahead and crack right on into it. So here we are on the world map, where a number of the things that make this game a little bit different than all the other titles that come out inside of this genre are laid out for you to peruse. And so this game actually has a full-on world map with different environments that you're going to be fighting inside of, and as you gain adjacency to other landmarks on the map, those will allow you to upgrade certain aspects of your character, or they will give you an incentive to replay these levels over and over and over again so that you can unlock all of the faction bonuses and items and mechanics that are going to be out there in order to make your character more customizable and more interesting. And I think that's a really good addition to the game. In fact, I was really bummed out when the demo ended after I got to the finalized. This is the endless mode. You saw that at the beginning of the video while I was doing my introduction. And so there's an endless mode at the end of the demo that you can play around with. But I was pretty happy with the faction grind, and I actually liked all the things that they added on in as I was playing through the game in order to make my character stronger, get new things, new artifacts, new relics, new legendaries, new Diablo-style mechanics, so that you can actually customize your gear and fiddle around with the attributes and affixes and stuff like that they're going to be dropping through the course of the game. But I figured we'd go ahead and just jump on into one and begin the ritual here and see what sort of trouble we can get ourselves into. So as it stands right now, there's only two races inside of the game that I've seen so far. There's humans, and there's humans, and then there's two classes, I guess. Barbarian and Hunter. For right now, since you saw some of the melee gameplay in the opening of the game, I figure I'll probably just take one of these random hunters right here, and then we'll get on into it. Let's smack this guy around. This first skeleton with stuff sticking out of him is always the first guy you gotta beat to death so that you can get your first item and get started with the game. So we can take one of three bows. We can get a lunar bow, we can get a primal bow, or we can get a solar bow. The lunar bow, it makes it so you have a chance to freeze your enemies and stop them in their place, but it fires very slowly. It does a ton of damage, though, when it does fire. You can go with the hunter's bow, which is kind of in the middle. It does a lot of damage, but it's still on the slow side. But there's a chance with the hunter's bow that you'll fire 2 arrows whenever you fire an arrow. You've got the fiery short bow over here. It is the fastest. It's basically a machine gun or a submachine gun once you get it leveled up, but it lights things on fire as it goes on through, and I think that sounds like a lot of fun. So let's light some cats on fire, especially considering the fact that I personally right now have available a legendary that I unlocked inside the demo that makes burning damage really, really effective. The beginning parts of the game are going to be a little bit slow. There's not going to be too many things that are going to challenge you, but we did get our first level up right here. So every single time you level up in this game, the game is going to give you a selection of 3 perks that you can pick through in order to level them up and make your character stronger. So we can increase our burn chance over here. We can increase our attack speed. I think that's a good place to start, is just increasing attack speed. This game does have a little bit of an action RPG feel to it, because while your character does auto attack, you have a little white ring at the bottom of your feet that determines what direction he attacks in, and so you are going to have to be aiming as you go through the game, giving it a little bit more stimulus than just a game that automatically fires your abilities at everything around you. We can get Power Shot right now at level 3. It's a powerful enemy that pierces through enemies and deals 26 or 2... a lot of damage, alright? A big chunk of damage. Or we can take Ricochet Shot that makes our arrows bounce around. I think we'll probably benefit from Ricochet Shot the most. I don't know that for a fact, but I also saw that one of the enemies dropped a perk over here. So let's go ahead and pick up the perk real fast. I'm going to go for higher... Let's go for higher chance of rare items early, because as it stands right now, I haven't unlocked the mechanic that allows you to customize your gear. So gear is just going to stop dropping for us at some point once our character is fully equipped. And so it would behoove us to get the best possible items that we can while going through the game the first time around, since we don't have the mechanic that allows us to reroll gear and get better affixes and stuff like that. We're going to want more solar damage, I think, because our bow deals solar damage. And we've got our first piece of equipment. We can get one of 2 headbands, or we can get a cap. All of these are common in quality. These do the same thing that items do in Diablo, where they have like a white version, a blue version, a yellow version, a purple version, so on and so forth, and it's just random what you get. Some runs are better than others. This one right here gives me 10% movement speed, which I think is going to be pretty useful at some point. But I am going to take the Savage's headband because that gives me higher critical hit chance. And not only that, it gives me higher critical hit damage while I'm out here and running around with enemies. And so I'd like to have that. Let's get 30% attack speed increase right there and get ourselves developed out for a better day. These gray coins on the ground that you're seeing rattling around, these gray coins are a metagame currency that you use to upgrade the abilities that you found on the world map that can come up inside the rotation for drops as the game progresses. It's kind of hidden inside of a menu. It took me a minute to find how I actually spend these things, but I'll do my best to show you how it's done. Let's take projectile amount. We now have a 20% chance to get another projectile added on in every single time we fire. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more loot drops or a few more perk drops so that we can get that up to the moon. I'd like to get it up to like 200-300% over the course of our run, but I think it only stacks up to 5 from perks itself. That right there is a blood shard. I read something in, so the game doesn't really have a tutorial, it has a glossary. I read in the glossary that these little soul shards, you also use those to unlock things in between rounds, but I read something that I can't recall now about it increasing the damage you deal for everyone you're carrying and like increasing the amount of damage you take from everything you're carrying too, but I don't know. We're going to take burst shot right here. Every 3 seconds we fire a triple arrow. That gives us a chance for all of those triple arrows to ricochet, which is going to get pretty nutty, and it's going to trigger off that little pinball effect that you're seeing right there. I've been playing ranged characters a lot more than melee characters just because I think this game suffers from the same problem that every Diablo-like game has ever suffered from since the dawn of time. It's that melee characters have to actually play the game and manage their spacing and pay attention to boss mechanics and stuff like that, while ranged characters just don't. They just kind of fire wildly into the middle of the enemy and just stay away more if they don't want to get hit. We can get a couple different chainmail shirts here. We can get the silver chainmail top, which gives us a higher chance for rare objects. It gives us a chance for rare items, more critical hit damage, and then movement speed. We do have an alternative one over here, which is sort of displaying to you that the same item can have different affixes on it. And so when you go into the glossary, you can look up every single piece of equipment and armor that you've got, and you can look at all of the affixes that it can roll for each of these slots right here, and just kind of figure out for yourself what the better choice is going to be. This one gives us 50% chance for rarer items. We get more attack speed, and all damage types get a 30% bonus right there. That's pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. We've also got ourselves a soul fragment over on this side. I don't like any of those choices, so I'm not going to take any of those choices. And then I'm going to boost up my solar damage, since that's what my bow is dealing for right now. Although, burst shot... Oh no, burst shot also gives us solar damage. Very nice. Okay. I will take that. I don't know if your abilities inherit their damage source from the bow that's firing them as of right now. I would have to investigate further. But for the moment, we seem to be in a really, really good spot, and hopefully a lot more rare stuff drops. We'll take 20% more chance to get a double projectile. Just because getting that up to 100 as soon as possible, it's like doubling our damage. It's pretty good, and because it increases our chances of our arrows ricocheting off the enemy's face while we're firing, it's multiplicatively, possibly even logarithmically increasing our damage, maybe exponentially, I don't know, I'm not a mathematician, but I'm smart enough to know that 2 arrows ricocheting 5 times is way better than 1 arrow ricocheting 5 times. So as it sits right now, we do have a health bar up above our head. I haven't really talked about that just yet. Give me another projectile chance right there. The health bar above our head, you may have noticed the conspicuous times 10 next to it. That's because we have 10 health bars, and this game does have a mechanic that sort of leans into the Crom-worshipping darkness of Conan the Barbarian, where if you lose a health bar, one of your limbs gets chopped off. It doesn't really change the way that your character performs, but it does force you to play the rest of the round with a missing limb that is spurting blood everywhere and causing your health to continuously decrease, thus forcing you to take perks that slow down your bleed rate as you go through the game if you end up getting wounds too early, so that you can actually survive without your health just ticking away. But I do find that to be an interesting mechanic right now that could be utilized in a lot of interesting ways via the perk system, and I found that it actually makes the decision-making process while playing through the game interesting, because I have runs that go for 20 or 25 minutes, but I have limbs chopped off inside the first 4 or 5 minutes of the playthrough, and it does force you to start taking different perks in order to protect yourself. We've got a couple of different movement abilities we can choose from here. We can get lay fire traps. That would scale really well with our solar damage, so every time we dash on our spacebar, we're going to throw traps everywhere, and if anything steps on those traps, it lights off an AoE that blows up enemies. The other one that gives us a little bit more control is that we could go with disengage, which allows us to fire 3 arrows every time we dash. It triggers the ricochet scam that we're kind of working on right now, and so let's go for that. I will take more critical hit damage. We've got an artifact right here. Every time an enemy takes damage from burning, it has a 20% chance to burst in flames, dealing 75% damage to all nearby enemies. I do think that that's probably the best artifact to take for right now. There's another artifact that increases our attack speed every single time we use a... Ooh, we got a caravan over here. So what are these guys? These guys right here... Oh, I lost 2 health bars. I wasn't paying attention, and there's ranged guys everywhere. One complaint I do have about the game is that bullets are far too difficult to see. The purple color that they've used for the bullets, unfortunately, damn near invisible once you're running around fighting with enemies, so they are going to have to swap the color up on that, or at the bare minimum, make all of the bullets much more obvious to be seen as you're flying through the game, because I find that 99% of the damage I take in this game is just from bullets that I cannot see while running around the map. And as you can see, our character has had half of our torso ripped off in the course of our combat here. Let's go for more projectile piercing. Hopefully that'll help on out. Once your body parts have been sundered from your body, they do not come back. So we're just going to have to live with this from now on. But the bleed rate is pretty catastrophic right now, and I think will lead us towards an early expiration date. What you're seeing right now is the downside. So there are a number of perks that you can take that cause healing orbs to spawn all over the map. I took none of them because my last run, my DPS was really bad, but I had all that supplementary stuff, and it made the game feel bad to play for the 20-minute run that I was playing around with. So this time I was trying to do something else, but unfortunately that didn't work out for us. We'll take the Stalker Wraps. They give us a better chance to get a bit more. Oh, I could have lowered my bleed rate right there. I don't think it's going to help anyways because I'm bleeding out. And there you go. My character is dead. We lasted a whopping 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Bummer. We also did not level up Band of the Lion in the way that I wanted to. I want this to get up to level 20 because at that point, it says that it unlocks a mechanic that allows me to swap out affixes on my gear, which will make the game so customizable. And that right there is going to be the major hook that makes this thing feel great. Let's give a run to the Coastal Cave, and we'll see how that plays out for us in the overall draft of characters. So I wanted to give the Hunter another swing. All of these guys are proficient with two-handed weapons. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. Reroll them for me. There we go. We'll take Olivia this time around, and we'll see if she can survive a little bit better than our last character. I'd like to get my faction leveled up at least once or twice here before we go any further. Solar damage didn't really seem to get the job done, so let's go with primal damage this time and just see if that feels a little bit better as we churn our way through the opening salvos of enemies. So now that we're starting to get to the meat and potatoes here, I took some pants that make it likely that the orbs that the enemies drop, normally reserved for XP, will be red. That way I can heal myself this time around. It's a 10% chance off each of them. So hopefully we'll see some of those drop on in. Let's get some movement speed, maybe? That's only 5% movement speed. Let's just keep on trucking when it comes to attack speed so that we can churn these guys out a little bit more quickly and more effectively. Let's drop these guys right here. I do like how the game changes up the environment that you're playing inside of. Almost every single level has its own tile set. Keep that up. So many indie games get really lazy about that shit, and it just drives me crazy. Give me a little bit more piercing. I didn't see what the other half of that was. Damage increased to healthy enemies, so that just makes that our alpha strike is a little bit harder when we open up on somebody. There's one of the red orbs right there that allows me to heal on up. There is no overheal, but the game does have mechanics like barrier and energy shield if you lean into that. I haven't really played around with it too much, but the 1 or 2 times that I focused on getting a big batch of barrier, the nice thing about barrier is that barrier makes it so that you have health that regenerates. That's the nice thing about barriers, that if you can disengage from the enemies, you're going to get yourself a nice little stack of regen going, even if you don't have any healing orbs available on the field. A little bit more loot right there. We've got Savage Boots +1. 15% critical hit chance along with movement speed and resistances sounds all right to me. We've got another fragment right here. Let's re-roll it. One thing I really like about this game is they give you a huge amount of re-rolls. And you can always get more just by bypassing a level up. And then some level up perks will just give you a big handful of re-rolls so that you can really tailor and customize your build. Now we're getting to the fun part where we're fighting humans. It's the fun part because they burst into massive just globs of giblets every single time you murder one of them. And so I always like fighting the humans a little bit better. Maybe that makes me a sicko. You may have noticed that I disabled the nudity so that we're not hanging brain and we don't have booba flying around all over the place. That's just due to the fact that everything I do nowadays seems to get demonetized. And so, like, what are you gonna do? Give me another dodge charge and a little bit of regeneration right there. That sounds good. I'm going to need to figure out where most of my damage is coming from, so I may need to turn the damage numbers back on for right now. I turned off the damage numbers so that the game would have a little bit more clarity while we were playing for the opening intro so that people wouldn't get overwhelmed. So we can get more healing, we can get attack reach, which is nice for our bow. We can fire from further away. We can get 20% added on into all of our damage, which is pretty spicy. I'll probably go with 20% more damage right there just because I don't want to get clipped like we did on the last run due to just having like a weird setup going for me. We've got a spirit caravan right here, basically loot goblins. That's all that they are. So if you murder these guys right here, they are dangerous though, so we need to hit them from further away, and I need to heal for a minute. They launch AoEs that you've got to dodge. And so if we can kill these guys off, we get a bunch of loot and a bunch of goodies that'll make our run easier. But we do need to watch out for the little globes that they're throwing all over the place that are smoking us out mortar style. Go ahead and give me more critical hit damage. That sounds really nice. And then we've got another soul fragment right here. Let's get some critical hit chance. Let's get some critical hit damage. And then let's get some critical hit chance. Cool. I'm going to turn on damage numbers for a second just to see what we're playing with. Damage numbers are now reactivated, and yeah, I'm seeing some 700s and some 600s and stuff inside of there. It looks like we're going to be leaning heavily on crit. Some people lean on the everlasting arms. I'm leaning on my ability to just out DPS you, which if Path of Exile has taught me anything, somewhere around Act 3 or Act 4 means that everything in the game is going to one-shot me, but you don't need defense if you have amazing offense and one-shot everything outright, okay? And that's the way that I like to live my life. I'm all in. Life ain't nothing but a card table full of gambits. Let's see if we can get rid of Zohak the Vile over here. Our damage appears to be trying to backstab me. Our damage appears to be perfectly fine for what we're trying to accomplish. Give me, what do we have in here? Give me 50% critical hit chance is good. I think we can stop boosting that right about there just to focus on critical hit damage. And this silver chainmail top is going to do exactly that for us. Yeah, give me the 75% critical hit damage right there from that armor. That sounds really, really satisfactory. We're going to go with Zaladon's Ring of Rapid Strikes. That means every time we connect with a shot, our attack speed goes up. However, if we miss a shot, it resets back to its default. I find that this ability is really, really, really good for dealing with bosses because you can just line them up, and then all of a sudden your bow's just going to be like twuck, 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 and just absolutely melt them. And so I think we're in a really good spot right now. Let's go with disengage so that I can fire more arrows whenever I want to for just a nice little burst of DPS, because we do have multiple dash charges too, so we can actually trigger that multiple times in a go if we want to, and I think that'll be a really, really good spot to be in. I'll show you how the metagame currency works after we get on out of here so that you know where that's located, but for now all we gotta do is churn and burn on these dorks. Let's get on into it. Got another boss spawned. And boss got instantaneously melted. I think we're in a really good spot right now for our DPS. Throw a little more critical hit damage in there, and we've got some armbands that we can play around with. I do hope they add a lot more armor graphics and stuff too, so that on every single run you feel like you've created a unique character that's got kind of like a cool look to him. This gives us 10% movement speed on top of giving us 75% more critical hit damage, so I'm not even going to look at the rest of what it has on it. Yeah, that boosted us up to like 1,500 damage on a really good crack right there. So I'll take it. Sounds nice. I think we're in a solid spot right now where we should be able to go the distance and finish this thing off. The core idea of the game is that you are a Conan-style barbarian that's going out into the world in order to do these rituals that are healing the post-apocalyptic world that's been annihilated by all this kind of stuff. Let's get more projectile amount, I suppose, because what's better than 2-bullet? 3-bullet. I would like to have many damage and many bullet. But there's a number of clever twists here that I think indicate to me, you may have noticed that I don't really cover Survivor-style games anymore. There's a reason for that. The genre is tired. It's burnt out. There's too many of them, and too many of them are just reductive garbage, like a fast asset flip, in order to make money, and they don't do anything particularly new or interesting compared to the ones that came before them, which is a shame, because I actually think there's a lot of fertile earth to still be mined out of the genre. It just seems like nobody's interested in like digging down and getting after it in the course of events. With this game, I can see that the developer is trying to see what he can do with the formula to make it more interesting. I get like little subtle hints of flavors of things like Diablo inside of here, Halls of Torment. I like the overworld map, and I think that that can be utilized in really interesting ways too, to allow the player to get like shards that drop inside of the levels that have stat boosts and modifiers to the enemies inside of them, much akin to what you would do in something like Path of Exile with maps and towers and things of that nature, where you can slot those into a tower that's somewhere on the map, and it'll create an AoE around itself that makes all of the maps around there give you fat bonuses to XP, fat bonuses to faction gain, but they also make the enemy spawn like 30% more thickly and have more defenses, and every single boss has a ranged attack now that has a chance to deal tons of damage. There's like little spots on the ground that you have to avoid the entire map. There's a lot of ways that they could expand this out and bring it into alignment with some of the top tier action RPGs that are out there in order to make the game just a really, really good hodgepodge of ideas. Like, I see a foundation here that is very, very promising. I will just take... Let's take 10% more solar damage, since our triple burst shot right there is solar damage. It should give us like an extra 200 on each hit, at least from the triple shot. It's not going to benefit the entire repertoire of abilities that we're throwing out into the world right now, but it'll help out a little bit. Dude, Band of the Lion is so close. I just need one more level. I just need one more level, and I've been grinding so long. I've played this game for like 5 hours, chat. I have played this game so much, because you guys know me. I've never met an action RPG that I won't throw 1,000 hours into. It's just one of those genres I always find myself coming back to. The last couple weeks have just been wiped out by Path of Exile 2 for me, but I'm not sure if I like Path of Exile 2. I like Path of Exile 2 if I'm playing like the hunter or the mercenary, a class where I can boil my entire build down into like 3 keys and just spam at the enemy, but I do not find the game fun when it's forcing me to play with their weird contrived combo system that they've built into every single class that has me playing piano on my skills all the time. I don't know, a bit of a swing and a miss for me. There's things I like about it, but there's also a lot of things that I really dislike about it that sort of just made me want to go back to Path of Exile 1. I don't know if any of you guys are getting that same vibe from it. A lot of weird choices they've gone with. I do like that as you get further on into runs in this game, the enemies do get new abilities and things they do, like leap slamming at you. You also, if you're playing a melee character, can get leap slam, and it's good, but it's also a liability. I'm going to take 25% more critical hit damage. That's the cup that I'm drinking from right now, and it is overflowingeth, and so I would prefer to keep it overflowingeth. Let's keep just dancing around a little bit. These guys are all over the place right now. Luckily, I have the movement speed to outrun them, so I'm not too concerned about them accidentally landing a hit and one-shotting my health bar. But I think we're in a really good spot at the moment. Like, I think this build came together unlike the last one. The last one, we had a lot of ranged fire flying around, and then I decided to go in after the caravan while ranged fire was flying around, and we got mortared to death pretty aggressively. It was a little bit saucy and painful, but this time things are going well. Give me another dodge charge, please, so that I can do that right there in order to clear out corridors and escape from tricky situations, I think. Okay, they are getting speedier, aren't they? I might have to invest in some movement speed upgrades. Then again, we're not one-shotting either, and I find runs go the best when I am one-shotting. Alas, no one-shot to be had right now. Give me that soul charge right there. Oof, just barely made it through the center of those guys. Yep, you guys just keep exploding into giant heaping piles of gore. You look better that way. I prefer that version of you rather than the physical version that is trying to consume my flesh. Oh, we've got jumping spiders now. Could be worse. Could be barking spiders. I want more movement speed. Yeah, movement speed sounds absolutely, positively perfect right now. Big spider causing all kinds of headaches. I keep losing my mouse in the fracas, in the ballyhoo. Ooh, that was a good grip of damage right there. I seen it. I seen it. I seen the explosion on the health bar. Come on, Broodmother. Go down for me, would you? My auto attack is unfortunately not picking her to shoot. There we go. I just need her off the field of war right this second, but something tells me my Spiderian problems are not over. Give me 20. Yeah, I'll take another 10%. Why not? It's not great. Oh, we got one of the gold coins. So when you're customizing abilities in this game, and I hope they develop this out further too, because it's a very, very good system, when you're upgrading abilities in the metagame, they've got kind of like a branching path skill tree for each ability that allows you to customize the way that it works. I would recommend expanding that out to the moon, and the gold coins are what allow you to purchase abilities from the final tier to make your attacks and whatnot more interesting and make them do different stuff. Can you die for me, please? I need this camel to go too before he gets off the map. I don't know if I'm going to get that last one right there. I'm going to try, but I don't know if I'm going to get him. Let's get critical hit damage. Let's get some barrier. That actually sounds weirdly good to me. Yeah, let's get a little bit of barrier for our HP. That way if we accidentally soak a hit or anything, we don't have to worry too much about it. I'll go up to 200% so that we'll have 200% barrier compared to our HP. Attack force, I don't really care about. Give me more primal damage, I guess. I feel like our damage is starting to wane a little bit. It's not exactly where I want it to be. But we are doing a really good job of mulching through enemies for the moment. Let's get a third dodge charge. That way, I can fire off many more of that ability right there to strafe the field. 25% more critical hit damage. We basically have guaranteed crits with a 50% chance to shoot, but we're also firing multiple projectiles every single time we engage. So I think we'll be all right. I think we're going to make it to the end of this one right here. But all in all, a really solid game. Like, I like it. And that's coming from somebody that doesn't particularly like Vampire Survivors games as of right now. I will say that I've noticed that I enjoy the Vampire Survivors games much more when they lean into a Diablo influence. Like, I like that a lot because I think they're natural bedfellows. If you boil down both Vampire Survivors games and action RPGs down to their end game, they're really not discernible between each other. Like, they are both just fields of gnarly amounts of enemies and huge amounts of damage numbers flying everywhere as you mulch through everything and loot flies all over the place. And so I think the two are kind of like peanut butter and chocolate, or peanut butter and jelly. They go together really well, and it irks me that nobody's been really getting on into that. So now that the timer has run out, we get chased by ghosts. And you have to die here. You have no choice. However, if your character has the movement speed required, you can kind of stay away from them and continue farming a little bit if you want to. I unfortunately do not have the movement right now, and so I've been consumed by the undead that are very cranky about the fact that I've disrupted their invasion of our world with a ritual. But that's success right there. That's what winning looks like. So on the in-between rounds, what you can do is, there's a few of these right here that'll have green arrows on them. I would recommend that instead of the Stygian Archive here, the Stygian Archive should be a thing, but there should be another panel on this side that allows you to see all the upgradable things inside of the game. So in this case, if we went for like burst shot right here, you can see that I've already upgraded it all the way through. It's got a faster instant attack chance. It's got a projectile split chance when it hits an enemy, and so you can kind of play around with these ideas to make the abilities do more what you want them to do, whether that's more piercing, or whether that's more damage, or whether that's more projectiles being fired. I like this idea, and I think it should be expanded further. Instead of just having it split between two options, I would turn this, each one, into just like a mini sphere grid that you get maybe 10 points on, and then you play around with it to get the build out on each ability that you want in order to add some more complexity. But if I wanted to upgrade Whirlwind, for example, I could spend 25 of my coins right there to make its AoE larger, and then I could spend 100 in order to give it higher critical hit chance, and if I had 375 in a gold coin, I could get the ultimate ability for it. One word of advice I would have is that the ultimate ability on each of these is just another passive boost. Don't do that. If you're going to keep this the way that it is, the ultimate ability on every single one of these attacks should be a split between two things that fundamentally change the way that that ability works. So in the case of Whirlwind, the left ability would be that Whirlwind now is no longer at your character's feet like garlic. It goes out and it circulates around you. And then the second ability would be, it's still attached to your feet, but every 5 seconds, the swords launch themselves out towards the edge of the screen, giving you an extra attack and giving people kind of that satisfied feeling of getting an evolve from Vampire Survivors, which, from what I understand, people really like evolutions. These guys over here, altars, you can sacrifice your soul shards in order to give yourself a higher chance to get rare versions of loot, or to give yourself more attack power, or to give yourself more health bonuses. I'm looking forward to unlocking more factions in the final version of the game, but I can say that there are very few demos out there that make me play for more than 3 or 4 hours, and this game is one of them, and I think that's a really good sign inside of a tired, worn-out genre that is just absolutely spammed by cash grabs. And so if I had to wager on a game that's gonna make it, it would be this one. I'll see y'all later. Thanks for hanging out, and that's all I got for you, folks. This is Conquest Dark. Catch y'all tomorrow.